The great Bishop Desmond Tutu once said, "The way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time." I'm not an expert in pachyderm protein, but he wasn't giving us dietary advice. Bishop Desmond Tutu was encouraging us to persevere. Not one bite at a time, but one step at a time, over and over until we reached our goal, our promised land. My name is Michael Gonzalez. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a grandfather. I'm a believer in God. I'm a recovering news reporter, and I like to work with small businesses and small nonprofits. So today, I'd like you to wrap your mind around the idea of perseverance, and we all have some idea of what that is, but I would suggest to you that we all have perseverance in three different birthrights. That is the human birthright, that is the hope birthright, and the spiritual birthright. So we'll get back to that in a minute, but I want you to also think there's going to be a story of a family, a Puerto Rican family from Isabela, Puerto Rico, who demonstrated all of those birthrights and persevered. But let's come back to Bishop Desmond Tutu's statement about one bite at a time. That ran through my mind as I ran my third Chicago Marathon with 47,000 other nut jobs about 3 weeks ago. Now, over the course of that 26.2 miles, I decided to quit about 57 times because I was done about 57 times. I didn't stop. I didn't stop because I kept thinking about raising money to provide clean water to kids around the world. It was part of a fundraiser I was doing. But I was also thinking about the example that I was going to set for my kids, two of whom are back here right now. So, that's a major personal accomplishment. To run 26.2 miles, or at least to complete 26.2 miles, that's a major accomplishment. Well, let's be honest. I chose that opportunity to persevere. I chose the pain. I chose the training. I chose the stress. So at the end of the day, so what? Because if you look around you, every person in this room has persevered. And we have examples all around us of people who've persevered through far more than I did in just a few hours or a few months of training. I think about overworked and underpaid teachers who spend their entire careers trying to make lives better for other people's kids. They dig into their pockets to buy supplies, maybe coats and hats. They help them with their homework. They even stay up at night thinking, wondering what's happening with their kids. I think about the single moms and dads who every day go to work, every day provide, and they struggle and they struggle and they clean and they prepare their kids and they want the best. They nurse them at night. And at how often they say to themselves, if I can just get through one more day. I think about people who become sick and become fatigued, and they fight that as they fight cancer. I think about amputees who have changed their lives so that they can adapt, so that they can move forward. That's the human birthright. That's that drive in every one of us to survive, to do something more than what we have right now so that we can continue. And that brings me back to our little family from Isabela, Puerto Rico. This is the Gonzalez family. The man in the middle is Pedro. So in 1956, around the fall, Pedro and his wife decided he had to leave Puerto Rico and go to the States. In PR, they call this the States. It is what it is. He had to leave and go to Newark, New Jersey, because times were just too tough. How do you raise children when you barely have enough food? How do you raise children on just rice and beans and some root vegetables for years? This could just go on and on and on. So he made the difficult decision and found a way to come to Newark, New Jersey, where his brother-in-law Maximino was. Now, this is not some new story. Throughout the history of mankind, we see mass movements of people going from here to there because there is a better life. That's the story of immigration, but that's also the human story. In our own country, how many people moved around this country to go find something better? How many people came from down south to work at the steel mills right here? How many people went out west from the Great Plains states, went out west to find work? That's the story. Right? Immigration is our story, and immigration is the story of that human birthright, perseverance. So coming back to the Gonzalez family. Somehow, Pedro, like I said, found enough money to buy a flight to come over to Puerto Rico, right, to come over to New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. So while he was there, Maximino got him a job washing dishes at a hotel. So you can picture Pedro scraping other people's food off their dinner plates so he can scrape together enough money to send for his family. To come to the Northeast, New Jersey, in winter from the tropical paradise. I'm not knocking New Jersey, but come on. It's wintertime in New Jersey. But still, this is what they did, right? And this is not unlike so many other people who come to this country, who try to come to this country. In 2021, the American government allowed 1.5 million migrants to come into this country. The following year, they turned away almost 3 million migrants who wanted to come here for a better life. So Pedro brought his family over, and they struggled, and they tried. They, of course, had that human birthright, but they kept thinking that there was something better. There's something more. I mean, who does that? Who leaves their home and takes their children and all their belongings, and they go into the dark, they go into the unknown? The people who do that are the people who have that hope birthright that I mentioned earlier. They hope there's something more for them, and they're going to figure out a way to get it. And I love that about them. I love that about my own family. In fact, if I'm going to go back, because I want you to take a look. That man in the middle, Pedro, was my paternal grandfather. This is my family story right here. The little guy to the left, that's Louis Gonzalez. Louis Gonzalez is my father. And the other guy on the other side, that's Theo Pete. We lost Theo Pete about 2 years ago. But that grand woman, that beautiful person behind, was Mama. Her name was Trinidad, but she was Mama. And Mama was as tough as she was loving. Mama was a woman of faith. Mama would bury her nose into scripture. And I remember seeing this. And I remember watching her, right? I also remember the butt whippings I got from her, but I know she did it with love, right? But, even though I never met my grandfather, he died a month or two before I was born, but even I know that he and Mama had that spiritual birthright. That perseverance is a spiritual birthright. Because as they stayed here in the United States, the two older kids, they went and got jobs. They had a couple more kids. Things got a little better. And as things got a little better, it began to become a little clearer that even Newark, New Jersey can become a promised land. If they could just get past that poverty, they can get to that promised land. And isn't that what all major religions teach us? They teach us that if we cross enough deserts, if we cross the right rivers, we will arrive at the promised land. They also teach us about perseverance. We have many, many examples of perseverance throughout all kinds of Holy Scripture. For example, in the Bible, we know that Jesus Christ himself persevered for 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness at the beginning of his ministry, and later he persevered through beatings, spitting, humiliation, and crucifixion at the hands of the very people he came to save. He knew was coming, but he persevered anyways. I also think about our Muslim brothers and sisters. Now, they hold that the Quran is the revelation of Allah himself. And in that Quran, you will find scripture that says that you are to give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere. In the Buddhist holy book, there's a beautiful poem of perseverance. And I don't know the words exactly, but it's along the lines of, we hope that you also will overcome the different failures, the different trials and tribulations in your life, that you will overcome those. So we all know that we have that human birthright to keep going. We all know that we have that hope birthright, and everybody in this room has had that hope birthright at some point, right? And we all know that we have a spiritual element to our perseverance. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have to persevere again. In fact, we're going to continue to persevere. Every one of you has your story of when you persevered. There's more to come. The question is, how do you prepare for that perseverance? Okay? How do you deal with it the next time it comes your way? If you'll allow me, I'd like to suggest 3 tips, 3 ways that you can get back to it, that you can get back in the fight. One of them is to regroup. The second is to remember or recall, and the third is to return. When I say regroup, when you know that you're on your way somewhere and something stops you and there's a life circumstances and you feel defeated, so what happens? What do? Maybe it's possible to just stop for a moment. Just stop for a second. Catch your breath and try to just regroup. Because what happens is when you face that stress and when you face that calamity, your adrenal glands will produce ample amounts of cortisol, the stress hormone, and adrenaline. And it'll flood your body, and you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to want to fight, or you're going to want to get away. That's that whole fight and flee thing that we've always heard about, right? And by the way, please take a moment at some time to remember and pray for those who stopped persevering, for those who felt like they could not take another step further, for those who hit that wall and felt there was nothing else they could do but to stop their journey. Please keep them in mind. But if we come back to these tips, when you're regrouping, try to take conscious control of your very next step. And that's hard to do, I know. I've had that struggle many times. So here's an example. For the past 18 months or so, I've been learning meditation and mindfulness techniques. The idea is for me to control my emotions, control my reactions to a situation. Now, maybe there's a couple of people in this room who would say it's not working, but I think it is working. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist. The Nazis killed his pregnant wife and his entire family, sent him to a concentration camp where he saw human beings become animalistic, like animals, to survive. That's how they persevered. Viktor Frankl should have been the angriest man in the world when he came out. But instead, he came up with an amazing school of psychotherapy. And the other thing Viktor Frankl did was he came out with some great quotes and great books. Viktor Frankl says, the last of the human freedoms is your ability to choose how you're going to react to any situation. You get to choose to persevere. Next step I would recommend is to recall or remember. Like I said, you've already persevered. Go back and think about a time when you beat the odds, when you beat the system, when you did something positive in the face of resistance. And what you will find is that those levels of cortisol and adrenaline, they're going to decrease. And as they decrease, you're going to become calmer. And as you become calmer, you're going to think about more success stories. It's called the virtuous cycle. It works. Lastly, you've regrouped. Actually, you have regrouped. You have remembered a time when you succeeded. All right? Now, it's time to get back to work. It's time to get back at it. It's time to take a step. Go pray, go chant, do whatever you got to do spiritually, but do something. Take a step. You've earned it. You would now have the right to persevere. Again, we're all going to go through this. The Gonzalez family still goes through perseverance. We still persevere. We all face these challenges all the time, right? But at the end of the day, we get to choose how we respond to those challenges, right? Because really, life is a game of inches. We move forward 1 inch at a time, right? And consider this, that perseverance is progress. That perseverance is progress because at the end of the day, even the snail made his way to Noah's Ark. Thank you.